Any surprises for you in that vote on Saturday? 7 Republicans, which is a record for an impeachment, by the way, in terms of being a bipartisan vote, voting to convict President Trump. Some of them have already been facing censure back home in their states by Republican parties. What do you make of what we saw on Saturday?
Hey, Willie, I think, you could go through and make the case that, Richard Burr's vote was a surprise. It wasn't clear. I sort of had the feeling, and I think I said on the show that there would be a couple of last week, there would be a couple of Republicans who would vote to convict who we didn't necessarily expect. But I think the number overall ended up, obviously it's a historically bipartisan impeachment, the most bipartisan impeachment in history, and yet, not anything close to the number you would have needed to convict. And so, I think we were all waiting on Mitch McConnell, and I think maybe the biggest surprise of the day was not that McConnell voted to acquit, but was the fact that McConnell voted to acquit, and then, as Colin just joked about, went out and gave that rather extraordinarily cynical speech immediately thereafter. I know you guys have talked about the balancing act, the politics of that from McConnell this morning on the show, but it was the most stunning thing of the day in some respects, was that seeing Mitch McConnell really, you could see the wheels turning in Mitch McConnell's head all the time, trying to calculate at all times what is the way in which he thinks is the best path back to power for himself and for Senate Republicans. And that's how he played it out, tried to play both sides of this issue. Whether that will end up working for him and for Senate Republicans in the long run, I don't know. I'll take note. Joe's not here this morning, but, his conclusion at the end of this all on Saturday was, this is really may mark the end of the Republican Party. I think there's a pretty good case that could be true, but requires a little more elaboration than we have time for in this particular moment.
Yeah, a defining moment at the very least. Let's take a look at what some of the 7 Republicans who voted to convict Donald Trump had to say about their decision. Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska in a statement wrote, quote, "If we were talking about a Democratic president, most Republicans and most Democrats would simply swap sides. Tribalism is a hell of a drug, but our oath to the Constitution means we are constrained to the facts." Senator Mitt Romney of Utah said this, quote, "President Trump also violated his oath of office by failing to protect the Capitol, the vice president, and others in the Capitol. Each and every one of these conclusions compels me to support conviction." Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, the only one, by the way, of the 7 Republicans who voted to convict who is up for re-election next year, released a statement reading in part, "The nation's elected leader, the commander-in-chief of our armed forces, swore an oath to defend America and all that we hold sacred. He failed to uphold that oath," she said. Senator Susan Collins of Maine, explaining her decision, said, quote, "The abuse of power and betrayal of his oath by President Trump meet the constitutional standards of high crimes and misdemeanors, and for those reasons I voted to convict Donald J. Trump." Senator Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania said this, quote, "Unfortunately, his behavior after the election betrayed the confidence millions of us placed in him. His betrayal of the Constitution and his oath of office required conviction." And here is Republican Bill Cassidy of Louisiana.
Our Constitution and our country is more important than any one person. I voted to convict President Trump because he is guilty.
Right after Cassidy's vote, the executive committee of the Republican Party of Louisiana unanimously voted to censure Senator Cassidy. The Louisiana House Republican Caucus chair tweeting at Cassidy, writing in part, "You are part of the problem with D.C. Don't expect a warm welcome when you come home to Louisiana." Here's how Senator Cassidy responded to that.
I'm attempting to hold President Trump accountable, and that is the trust I have from the people that elected me. And I am very confident that as time passes, people will move to that position.
And Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina explained his vote to convict by saying this, quote, "By what he did and but why he did not do, President Trump violated his oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." North Carolina's state Republican Party committee will hold an emergency meeting tonight to vote on censuring Senator Burr. Here's what Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina had to say about Burr's vote.
North Carolina, the biggest winner, I think, of this whole impeachment trial is Laura Trump. My dear friend Richard Burr, who I like and have been friends to a long time, just made Laura Trump almost a certain nominee for the Senate seat in North Carolina to replace him if she runs, and I'll certainly be behind her because I think she represents the future of the Republican Party.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.